Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero podcast, the show where I cover the least in the best way possible. I'm your host, Jason Wells. Today is Wednesday, January 15th. Super wildcard weekend is done. Wasn't much super about it. I guess that's why they dropped the super when they added that seventh team, because a lot of bad games, a lot of blowouts, except for the Sunday night game. That Commanders-Bucks game went down to the wire. And we'll talk about all of that. We'll talk about the teams that are going to be moving forward to the divisional round. We'll talk about these teams that lost. We now kind of look at what their offseason might look like for them. Probably going to be a bit of a shorter episode just because I have less football to actually talk about. And yeah, because I'm trying to figure out ways to fill. I'm going to talk about, in general, the 2025 class. I think I'll go by position, talk about the strengths and the weaknesses of this draft class. But yeah, that's going to be the episode. Not going to talk about the hirings and firings that we've had, because that's what the NFL weekly updates for. That's what Friday's show for. So no Mike Vrabel talk, no Mike McCarthy talk. We will talk about that on Friday's show, but let's just get into it here. I don't think I have anything else to really say before getting into the wild card recap here, but I guess let's start off with the game that we watched on Monday night. Rams 27, Vikings 9. Start off with the winning team, of course. The Rams, I mean, there isn't enough good things to say about this team right now. Sean McVay just put on an absolute coaching clinic against his former disciple, Kevin O'Connell. The defense looked phenomenal. 9 sacks on the day, 6 in the first half, and we'll talk about what that meant for the Vikings and more specifically Sam Darnold when we get to it. But the Rams are good. Do I think the Rams are going to... Who do they end up playing now? They play the Lions. Do I think that they're going to beat the Lions, have a chance to beat the Lions? Probably not. Again, that game is going to be a shootout, and that's what Friday's preview show. But the Rams winning a playoff game is awesome. And I think a lot of people at the start of the year were a little bit down on the Rams and what their defense could look like without Aaron Donald for the first time in forever. And their defense still looks really fucking good. Again, they've added in the last few years guys like Kobe Turner, guys like Bobby Brown, Byron Young, and then this past year, Jared Verse, who scores a touchdown in this one, and Braden Fisk, who is also his teammate at Florida State, who's also been a monster. They rebuilt this defense so quickly. And again, losing Aaron Donald, one of the best defensive players to ever play the game, and they haven't missed a beat, really. All of these young guys have stepped up, have been impact players immediately, and got to give a shout out to General Manager Les Snead, who has just been hand in hand with Sean McVay, picking the guys that they want. And of the last 3 draft classes, they have 11 starters right now. So that's half of their team is rookies from the last 3 years. And I think I can probably go off the top of my head here with the guys. Puka Nacua, obviously, Kyron Williams. On the offensive line, you got Steve Avila and Bo Limmer. And then on that defensive side of the ball, Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, Kobe Turner, Byron Young, linebacker Omar Spates, who is a UDFA, who's now starting for him. Shout out to Omar Spates, I guess. Cam Kitchens, and then Quentin Lake, their other safety. Shout out for the Rams of their draft strategy. They didn't have a first-round pick for years, and honestly, I didn't think that Les Snead was like that good of a drafter. And I mean, when you're constantly giving away your first-round picks, it's kind of like, and again, it worked out for them. They won a Super Bowl, but now Les Snead and McVay are doing the opposite. They're drafting, they're developing guys instead of getting the proven talent through trades. And it's really impressive that the Rams won a Super Bowl going the way of getting the vet talent brought in, trading for a vet quarterback, and now it's the opposite. No, I don't think the Rams are going to win a Super Bowl this year, but the fact that they are competing this quick and this quick of a turnaround after that Super Bowl run where everyone kind of just thought they were a one-and-done aging roster. Again, the quick turnaround that the Rams have done has been absolutely impressive. Matt Stafford is still awesome. Like, yeah, is he the Matt Stafford from like 4 or 5 years ago even? Definitely not, but he's still a very, very good quarterback. And he is, again, a consistent, proven winner, which is wild because the Matt Stafford narrative for most of his career was, oh, he chokes. He's a choke artist, and then he changes teams, goes to a team with more consistency and better coaching and yada, yada, yada. Stafford is still Stafford. He is playing that great after, what was this, his 15th season in the NFL? Does that sound right? Drafted in 2008? I'm not going to do the math. 15th? 16th? Whatever. Yeah. But it really was. It was this Rams defense. It was this young Rams defense that I have been hyping up for the majority of the defense who really did their job. So yeah, shout out to the Rams. Vikings on the other side here. Yeah, it's bad. These last 2 weeks of Vikings football, that Week 18 loss against the Lions and then this loss against the Rams, absolutely terrible. And I'm not going to point all the blame on Sam Darnold, but Sam Darnold threw away all the goodwill 17 weeks of the season, and these last 2 weeks have cost him lots of money, where I was of the opinion that the Vikings, and it was one of my off-season hot takes, where Sam Darnold's going to be the Vikings QB of the future, and now I don't think that you give him that 4-year, $160 million contract, or whatever that number would have ended up being. Now it's more likely that it's going to be a franchise tag, and if it's not a franchise tag and he does hit the open market, he'll get a nice payday, but it could have been a lot more money. And I feel for Sam Darnold because, again, getting a $100 million contract is incredible, and if he does hit the open market, a lot of QB-needy teams, someone will probably pay him that much, but these last 2 weeks of football really leave a bad taste in your mouth, and 9 sacks by Sam Darnold, and won't put all the blame on him. That Vikings offensive line just fell apart, basically. They lost Brian O'Neill, their very good right tackle, I think kind of midway through the game. Cam Robinson just was not, the interior was not good. But there was also a few times where even when Sam had all the time in the world where he kind of got antsy, had those happy feet where he couldn't actually set and make a proper throw because he was too worried about the potential pressure that might come. And then holding on to the ball way too long, taking, like, again, not even like, oh, he gets sacked for 4 yards. No, taking sacks that are like 11, 10, 9 yards back. It was not a pretty game at all for the Vikings. And then you just shift to the defensive side here. Brian Flores, he lives and dies by the blitz, and man, did he die in this one. Stafford against the blitz was basically perfect on the day. I think Brian Flores is a really good defensive coach, and I have been saying this since he's left Miami, and even when he was on Miami, I knew he was a good defensive coach. He was just a dickhead head coach, and he's even admitted to being a dickhead. But it's been time and time again, and I think that even with his time in Miami, and then even this year with the Vikings, where when they have played like really good offenses, his defense doesn't really work. And there's enough talent that he has on that defense, even though at the start of the year I was talking about the lack of talent that they have. But just nothing worked for the Vikings, and they're at a point now where it's okay, what do you do with Sam Darnold? Do you give him the franchise tag, bring him 1 year back, or even if you franchise tag, do you franchise tag to trade him to whatever team might want his services for 1, 2, maybe 3 years at this point? That's what I would lean. Like, they traded or they brought in Daniel Jones, and maybe Daniel Jones is going to be their vet backup while JJ is the starter next year. But it is crazy that, what was it, that week? Who did they play that week 17 game? But that week 17 game where they were in the locker room after and they're dumping their water on Sam Darnold. Yeah, it was that Packers game. And like they were loving life. It was so good. And just the 2 weeks since then has just been absolute disaster. It's, again, very tough season for Vikings fans to sell them on the fact that, oh, this is a team that has Super Bowl aspirations potentially, and then it just goes down the gutter immediately. Like, at least you didn't get your hopes up too high at the start of this playoff game, because it was over basically as soon as it started. So, yeah, very tough last couple weeks for Vikings fans. I assume JJ is their quarterback going forward, and it sucks this year too, because they got a lot of free agents that they have to figure out. I believe they do anyways. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I know Schefter always tweets out, oh, these are the upcoming free agents, but they've got, again, they have some cap space. They got to figure some stuff out. I think Byron Murphy is one of their big free agents who had a great year for them. Gilly's a free agent. I think Harrison Smith is a free agent. He just might retire, though. They got some things to figure out, but unfortunately for the Vikings, too, they only have 4 draft picks this year. So, their GM, Kwesi Odafe-Mensah, I think that's his name, he's got to be creative this offseason. But successful season for the Vikings, I guess I'll say, because again, I thought the Vikings were going to be the worst team in this division. Ended up with 14 wins, yada yada yada. People saying fire Kevin O'Connell, you're a bunch of idiots. Yeah, just tough last couple weeks for the Vikings, but we will go all the way back to this Saturday afternoon game. Texans 32, Chargers 12. Scorigami. We got a playoff scorigami. Always like those, but start with the Texans because they did win. This was the best the Texans have looked literally all season. I think it's as simple as that. The Texans were not this team from September week 1 to the end of December. It was night and day. And again, a lot of that is to blame on the Chargers and how poorly they played, and we'll get to that. But Joe Mixon, 25 carries, 106 yards, and a TD. Stroud, 22 of 33, 282, passing TD and an interception. Nico Collins being Nico Collins, 7 catches for 122 yards and a TD as well. Offense looked good, but it was the defense that was really the big difference maker for them. Will Anderson, sack and a half. Mario Edwards, sack and a half. Danico Autry got a sack. 4 interceptions on the day. 1 from safety Eric Murray. 2 from all-pro cornerback Derek Stingley. Another from rookie Kamari Lassiter, who's having a very, very good year. The Texans killed them. And it was the defense. It was Stingley just, again, playing. He is one of the best corners in the league, playing absolutely unbelievable football. I don't know. D'Amico Ryans hatching up a perfect game plan to counter what the Chargers did and what they wanted to do. It's hard for me to gas up the Texans too much, though, because they do play the Chiefs next week, and I know that the Chiefs are going to kick the shit out of them. Like, this was a win, and great for the Texans. They've got 2 playoff wins since they've dismantled everything from their team, essentially, and here I am as a Dolphins fan who has not seen a playoff win since, 2001? 24 years? That sounds about right. Either way. Disappointing. Disappointing to say the least. But, yeah, we'll talk more about the Texans in this Friday show. But again, their big playmakers all stepped up. Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, Derek Stingley, Kamari Lassiter, Nico Collins, Joe Mixon, CJ Stroud. They all had good to great games. So shout out to the Texans, I guess. Shout out to the coaching staff for just doing whatever they wanted on defense against the Chargers. And Chargers could do nothing. Chargers could absolutely do nothing. And does it make me a little happy that this is how the Chargers lost? Absolutely. As the hater in me, and my anti-Justin Herbert bias, I feel a little validated, especially because basically all the stuff that went wrong for them is the stuff that I was worried about going into the year. Didn't have any weapons outside Ladd McConkey. We'll talk about Ladd in a bit. The interior offensive line was absolutely dreadful. This old-ass defense just did not play well enough. Greg Roman as an offensive coordinator is not great. Again, he does his specifics very well, but Greg Roman I don't think is a good offensive coordinator. I don't think he'll get fired or whatever, but the run game, like J.K. Dobbins couldn't get anything going. Everything was bad for the Chargers, but I do want to talk about the quarterback. Justin Herbert, in 2 playoff games now, has blown a 27-point lead to the Jaguars and has thrown 4 interceptions in a game. I think out of all of the qualifying playoff quarterbacks in EPA, he finished 213 out of 214 QBs. Absolutely dreadful. And this kind of backs up all of my preconceived notions of Herbert, of when the lights are bright, he doesn't show up. Where, again, lots of time, and I'm not going to really knock Herbert that much. Was he awful? Was he terrible? 4 interceptions, 1 more than he had all season. He only had 3 interceptions this season. Yeah, he was fucking terrible. Was everyone else on the Chargers also really bad outside of Ladd McConkey? Yeah, everyone stunk. Not a single person except for Ladd showed up for the Chargers in this one. Hard to win a playoff game that way. And it looked like the Chargers might have been able to do stuff. They were up 6-0 early, kind of in control, and then just bad interception, deflection interceptions. Again, it just fell apart. Fell apart so quickly. And again, was it a little nice to see? Kind of, yeah. But I don't know. Again, it's the issues that I had with the Chargers going into the season that didn't really present itself for most of the season is what was their undoing ultimately in the playoffs. Now for this offseason, get some interior offensive linemen, get another weapon outside of Ladd McConkey, maybe get a proven or just get a younger running back other than J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards in there. Khalil Mack is hinting at retirement. He's a free agent anyways. Defense needs to get younger in general. Lots of stuff in the air for the Chargers right now. Again, another team that I didn't expect to make the playoffs. Did it help having a 4th place division schedule? They were 4th last year. Yeah, they were 4th in that division last year because they picked 5th. Does that help? It absolutely helps, but yeah, they're going to have a tough time next season. Again, the Justin Herbert stuff makes me a little happy, but I still think that Herbert is a very good quarterback. He's still easily a top 10 quarterback. This performance, though, it just validates everything that I've kind of felt about him, where when the lights are bright, where does he go? I have no idea. But again, like Matt Stafford, he's got years left on he just finished his rookie deal. I think he's got another, 4 or 5 year deal, something like that. Either way, Herbert's going to be in this league for basically maybe a decade more, 8 more years, something like that. Lots of time for his career to play out, but as of right now, blowing a 27-point lead to the Jags and having a 4 interception game in the playoffs, that's not good. That's not good at all. And again, validates my criticisms of him. But we can we can keep going here. Actually, I didn't give Ladd his proper shout out. Ladd McConkey, 9 catches, 197 yards, 1 TD. Literally the only person who could do anything in this game. Out of Herbert's 242 yards, he had 197 of them. The next closest receiver was a tight end, and it was Will Dissly with 2 catches for 16 yards. Get literally anybody, like someone who can catch the ball. Quentin Johnson, after that great Week 18 performance where I think he went over, I think he had like 180 yards, he was held catchless in this one. So they need weapons. Ladd is great. I'm still indifferent if Ladd's like a true wide receiver 1 or if he's just a really fucking good wide receiver 2. But either way, he's a really good player. This draft class, the Chargers absolutely nailed. They're going to have to do it again. But I like the direction that the Chargers are going. But the stuff with Justin Herbert is just, it's going to be really funny. And there's already people, it's like, oh, Joel Embiid in like the Chargers 10 jersey that Herbert wears. I don't know. It's I'm going to enjoy the next 6 months of Justin Herbert discourse because it's going to be funny to me. If you're a Chargers fan, probably not funny, but Herbert's a good quarterback. We'll leave it at that. Saturday night game here, Ravens 28, Steelers 14. This game was over as soon as it started. Like, quite literally, Steelers go, they get the ball, they punt, Ravens drive down the field, score. And then, literally on the Steelers' second drive, they were resorting to trick plays to try to move the ball. And that was that. They tried to really open up the playbook on the second drive of the game. And they could do absolutely nothing. Lamar was great, didn't have to throw the ball too much, even without Zay Flowers. It didn't matter. Derrick Henry was an absolute monster like he normally is at this time of year. 26 carries, 186 yards, 7.2 average, 2 TDs on the day. The defense was, again, great. Nabadi Madubuike, 2 sacks. Odafe Owa has a sack. Michael Pierce has a sack. They did whatever they wanted. Like, the Ravens they were such a better team in this one. Like, it wasn't even close. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have anything to say about the Ravens in this one. The Ravens did exactly what they should have. Did I think this game was going to be a little closer just because I was like, no Zay Flowers, it is a divisional matchup. The Steelers usually play them close regardless. Yeah, I picked the Steelers. What did it end up being? Steelers plus 9.5. I picked the Steelers. I thought that they were at least going to keep it relatively close. They did not. The Steelers absolutely stink, and they have a very, very big offseason to figure out. Whether that be who's going to be their quarterback, who's going to be this new vet that Mike Tomlin brings in to get his 9 wins and then flame out in the playoffs again. They got some questions at running back. They got basically questions everywhere on offense. And a lot of Steelers fans are questioning Mike Tomlin as a coach at this point. Where again, if you could tell me that my coach can get me 9 wins, literally 9 wins or more every single year of his career, I would be thrilled. And obviously that's not the threshold that Steelers fans hold themselves to. Again, you tell me a Dolphins fan, that would be lovely if the Dolphins could have a winning record literally every single year, but I understand the frustrations from Steelers fans at this point, and there's a stat here where Mike Tomlin, since his last playoff win, so Doug Peterson was hired as the Eagles head coach, won a Super Bowl, got fired from the Eagles, hired by the Jags, won a playoff game with the Jags, got fired by the Jags, all in between Mike Tomlin's playoff wins. He has not won a playoff game since Doug Peterson has been hired as the Eagles head coach, and they won a Super Bowl. So, yeah, I get the frustrations, but who are you going to get that's better? At least at this point, I think that Mike Tomlin deserves the benefit of the doubt, especially over these last few years, because again, old-ass Ben Roethlisberger wasn't really cutting it when we got into this decade. They move off him, but they move off him with Kenny Pickett. I think everyone knew that that was a terrible choice when they drafted him, but whatever. And then, yeah, they've had Mason Rudolph be a starter. They've had Mitch Trubisky be a starter. And Russell Wilson has been their best quarterback since Big Ben retired. But Russell Wilson also sucks. Russell Wilson, again, he throws a beautiful deep ball. That is it. That is all that man can do at this point, and it is what it is. Their run game isn't good. Like, there are things on this offense that just need to change in general, and at least there's some decent vet QBs available, I'd say, like Aaron Rodgers, Sam Darnold, potentially. But they got to figure out that QB position. That is the biggest knock on Mike Tomlin's entire tenure, in my opinion, is just not finding the quarterback after Big Ben. They have to make a move, whether that's trading up, and it sucks because you can't even trade up in this draft class because this draft class stinks, but they have to find a quarterback. It's as simple as that. Mike Tomlin, I won't say he's on the hot seat, but going into next year, I think his seat will be relatively warm anyways. Yeah, Steelers defense too. They're just old. Like, it is what it is. Cam Hayward had a great season, but he is old. TJ Watt was basically a no-show through the last 4 games of the season. No tackles, no sacks, like no anything. And I'm not saying that TJ Watt is old, but he was drafted in 2017. This would have been his 8th season in the league. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 24. I got to stop doing that too. I'm got to be confident in when I say this is blank. Either way, yeah, TJ Watt, 8th year in the league, and I think he's in his early 30s now, which, to me and you, that's not old. To professional athletes in the peak of their heights, you're on the downside now. So things have to get figured out for the Steelers. They got to find more weapons too, other than George Pickens, and George Pickens, I think, is great, but just another one of these crazy Steelers receivers that they seemingly have every single year. But if Mike Tomlin were to get fired, there would be more than a handful of teams who would be calling his phone and his agent immediately to get him an interview of whatever team that is. So that's the Steelers anyways. We can move on now to these Sunday games. Bills 31, Broncos 7. Another game that I expected to be a little bit closer, mainly just because I thought that the Broncos defense was going to show up more than they did. But the Bills offensive line, which I don't think has been getting their proper dues throughout the season, absolutely steamrolled them. The Bills decided that they were just going to run the football and run the football right at them, and that's exactly what they did. James Cook, 120 yards rushing and a TD. Josh Allen, 46 yards rushing. Ty Johnson, 44 yards rushing. They were just able to run the ball at will, and this Broncos defensive line that has been getting a lot of hype and praise throughout the season absolutely folded. But it's a big part of this Bills offensive line with Deion Dawkins, Spencer Brown, O'Cyrus Torrance. I'm trying to remember who their other... Connor McGovern. I think Connor McGovern's one of their guards. That sounds right. I forget who their center is. Either way, the Bills' offensive line is very, very good. And, again, hasn't gotten the credit that they really deserve throughout the season. But, yeah, I don't know. The Bills, again, I knew that they were going to win this game. I thought this game was also going to be a little bit closer, like the Ravens won, but the Bills were going to be in control the entire time. And, boy, were they in control the entire time. Started off a little bit shaky, that deep touchdown to Troy Franklin thrown by Bo Nix, but unfortunately, that was the Broncos' entire offense for the day. They used one play on their first series, and that was that. Bills' defense tightened up. They played very, very well, but do I give them a ton of credit? No, because this Broncos' offense is not good. is that the Broncos' offensive line is very, very good. They had a terrific season. Other than that, not a lot of bright spots on the Broncos to talk about. And yeah, I guess we'll just talk about the Broncos. Again, the Bills are great. They did exactly what they were supposed to do, just like the Ravens. I don't really have to spend much time on the Bills. So we'll talk about the Broncos here. Their offense sucks. And I think that's just kind of been my point for them basically the entire season, was their offense is not good enough to go against average to above average defenses. Again, Bo Nix had a great rookie year, exceeded my expectations wildly. I still don't think he's a good QB. It is what it is. And again, get him a proper run game. Get him another weapon outside of Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims, which either way, that's honestly not bad. It's a lot better than some teams' wide receiving cores anyways. But like, I think a run game is what this team really needs. Because again, when you're a team that has a really good defense and you need to control the clock on offense, and the way you do that is with a run game. It's like, it was, again, the later Brady, the Mac Jones Patriots, like that era was play really good defense, control the clock, force turnovers, run the ball well, score enough points to win. That's what the Broncos wanted to do this year, except their run game was absolutely horrendous. So they relied on the screen games and the quick passing games more or less, and the checkdowns, while their offensive line just basically stopped everyone that was in front of them. But yeah, I don't know. The Broncos, another team that wildly exceeded my expectations this season. I thought the Broncos were going to be the worst team in the league. Dead wrong about that one, obviously, but they have a lot of things that need to get figured out for next offseason. Their defense will remain relatively intact. The offensive line will remain the same, but I expect their offensive line to at least take a little step back, because I think that's just kind of like, they played absurdly good football this year. And even though the unit will stay the same, I just think that year to year that, I don't know. I don't believe that it'll be as good as it was this year either way. Yeah, they need running backs, but I don't know. I still don't believe in Bo Nix. I might be crazy and people might be coming at me, but it's like, if Bo Nix didn't play behind one of the best offensive lines in the league, he'd look a million times worse. And I know that's a very easy thing for me to just say because, well, he hasn't played behind one of the best offensive lines in the league. I don't know. I think Bo Nix is going to be a game manager quarterback for most of his career. And that's fine. You can win games with game managers. You can even win a Super Bowl with a game manager type quarterback, but everything else just needs to be perfect. And I don't know. At the end of the day, I think that this season was like the peak of Bo Nix. And hey, if he can sustain that peak for lots of years, great for him. But I don't think Bo Nix is really getting any better. I think that the team around him, especially on offense, can get a little better. But I think that the Bo Nix that we saw in his rookie year will be the Bo Nix we see until he retires. Or that'll be the best Bo Nix that we see until he's done, essentially. Yeah. This kind of just me turning into talking about Bo Nix. But again, quarterback's an important position. So we can move on to the mid-afternoon game here. Packers at Eagles. Eagles 22, Packers 10. And this game, again, also one of those games that just kind of ended before it even started. Packers take the opening kickoff. Keyshawn Nixon fumbles it. He recovers it, but Eagles ball. I'm still as confused as probably some of you are still of why the Eagles ended up getting that recovery, but I don't know. I have no idea why Nixon got smacked in the head too, another thing that just wasn't called, but yeah, that one was very, very confusing to me. So, and then it didn't get any better for the Packers. Romeo Doubs gets hurt. Jaden Reed gets hurt, Elton Jenkins gets hurt, Josh Myers gets hurt. So many injuries, and the offense was just done. And the fact that the Packers even hung around in this game a little bit goes to show you this again. We'll talk again. I'll start with the Eagles because they did win, but the fact that the Packers were able to hang around in this one when your fully healthy Packers team or fully healthy Eagles team outside of Nakobe Dean, who left this one with a knee injury, he's done for the year now. That's very unfortunate, but the fact that this was a 2-score game or a 1-score game for most of this game, and you couldn't move the ball on offense. And I give the Packers defense some credit, and I give defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley a lot of credit for his game plan in this one, but it should not be this hard to move the ball if you're the Eagles. Again, you've got Saquon Barkley running the ball. You have one of the best offensive lines in football. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts, also a good quarterback, and he's good. But I think that Jalen Hurts holds this team back quite a bit. And again, I think Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback, but I think that Jalen Hurts, outside of Jared Goff, is in... And I think those two situations are comparable, but their offenses are the best offensive situations in the NFL, and they should be able to score at will, basically. And the fact that they just couldn't is unbelievable. I think Jalen Hurts had under 40 passing yards going into halftime, and I get he's coming off the concussion, and there's probably a little bit of rust there, but Jalen Hurts is part of the reason why I don't like this Eagles team going forward. And again, the roster is so great. I think it's the best roster in the NFL, but Jalen Hurts is fine. I don't think Jalen Hurts is great. I think he's a fine, good quarterback, whatever. But it's the coaching. It's the coaching that really kills them as well. Vic Fangio has done an amazing job for this defense. I will not knock Vic Fangio. He is one of the better defensive coordinators in the league. Nick Sirianni is just a rah-rah head coach. Hire the right coordinators, and he just stands back and yells at people. Whatever. Kellen Moore as offensive coordinator, you would think that he has the easiest job in the world of scheming guys open. And again, his route concepts and how they decide, I don't know, his game plans in general don't make a lot of sense. And again, when you have Jalen Hurts, who's a good quarterback, the best running back in football, arguably, in Saquon Barkley, the best offensive line in football, arguably, it's the Eagles' offensive line, never mind. And then A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. It should be so easy to get yards, to go down the field, to score at will like the Lions do. And it's painful. It's insanely painful to watch. Now, again, blame on Jalen Hurts for me. Blame on Kellen Moore as well. But it's a big reason why I don't believe fully in the Eagles, despite them having the best roster in the NFL, in my opinion. Now, their defense absolutely showed up. First-round pick, Nolan Smith, 2 sacks in this one. Who else had some sacks? Oh, he was the only one to get a sack. Quinyon Mitchell, an interception. Zach Bond has an interception. Darius Slay has an interception. The defense plays well, and their defense is the big reason why they won this game. And it's crazy. I don't know. If the Packers were healthy going into this one, they don't lose all these guys, I think they had a real chance to win this game. But Eagles move on. They have a much tougher... Actually, I take that back. They don't. They get to play... They get the Commanders. So I think that they're going to kill the Commanders. Either way. The Packers on the other side, it, again, wasn't pretty at all. Yeah, it sucks losing 4 starters on offense. I guess 5 if you include Christian Watson, who tore his ACL late in the season too. But like my issue with the Packers coming into the season, and like the Chargers, where these issues didn't really pop up majorly during the season. It showed up in a major way in this one, where these wide receivers for the Packers, and even before Dobbs and Reed both went down, it's just not good enough. They need a true number one there in a very, very bad way. Because, again, they have a lot of guys that I like. Romeo Dobbs, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Tucker Kraft. Like, they have good, solid pass catchers who, yeah, they drop the ball from time to time, but, like, that is a very good group. You add a proven wide receiver one to the mix, that all of a sudden becomes one of the best and deepest wide receiver rooms in the NFL. And I think that's something that they need to address. And I think that this season proved that they need to address that. Coming off the 2023 season, I get why they didn't make those changes, because everything worked for them, wide receiving wise and passing wise, that 2023 season. But the wide receiving and the pass catching group is what let them down ultimately on offense. The defense, the first year system under Jeff Hafley, the secondary looked very good. It did its job. The pass rush, Rashawn Gary had a down year. Lucas Van Ness just doesn't look like he's going to develop into any kind of starting player for the Packers anytime soon anyways. They've just, again, they've new defensive system. They got to get some new fresh faces in there for them to work with. But yeah, the Packers, again, and their quarterback, who they paid a shit ton of money to. Again, I think Jordan Love is a similar tier quarterback to Jalen Hurts. I think he's good, but I don't think that he has all the tools. He has all the tools, just I don't know if he will get back to that 8-game stretch that he had last year of the back end of the season going into the playoffs where he was playing elite level football that got him that massive contract. I don't know if we're going to see that guy again. Like, we might see that guy again. It would not shock me if we did, but right now, there's, again, a lot of the highest paid QBs, you can say there are massive question marks around whether they should have gotten paid that much money. I'm going to include Justin Herbert in that conversation because his performances in Under the Bright Lights, they show that. Trevor Lawrence has done absolutely nothing. Tua has played very good football at times, and then he is injured very often. So that's tough. Jordan Love got a shit ton of money. Like, again, the QB market is absolutely nuts right now, and a lot of guys at the top of that market, their contracts look iffy at best going forward. But I don't know. Packers, lot to like anyways on that team. A lot to try to build on and improve in the offseason, but yeah, we can keep going to this Sunday night game, the only good game of wildcard weekend here. Commanders 23, Bucks 20. This was a very good game, a back and forth game. The Bucks defense did its job, multiple fourth down stops of the Commanders offense. And it came down to two mistakes from the Bucks of what really swung this game, and it was the fumble by Baker in their own territory. I think it was Baker and Jalen McMillan mistiming on a handoff on a sweep, whatever, and then rookie Graham Barden, who had a terrific season, snapping the ball early, causing some confusion, and yeah, that was that. We'll talk about the Commanders first because, again, they were the winning team. Jaden Daniels is awesome. I don't know how else to really say it. Jaden Daniels is very, very good at football. He is much better than I expected him to be in his rookie year. In this one, 24 of 35, 268 yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Carried it 13 times for 36 yards. He can do it all. And again, he definitely has some things to work on for his game, but his ability to avoid getting sacked, and specifically one of the last few plays of the game where did they need a first down? Yeah, I think that they needed a first down to I think they were close to field goal territory anyways when it snapped, but Kalijah Cansey, who's again a very good player for the Bucs, young player, immediately broke free of the guard, and oh my god, he's about to sack Jaden Daniels for a 7-yard loss, pushing them out of field goal territory, giving the Bucs the ball back, but it probably would have went to overtime anyways. And he's just able to sidestep him, run by, get that first down, ice the game. Kicker Zane Gonzalez did doink the football off the upright, but fortunately for him, it went in. But I don't know. Jaden Daniels does so many good things on the football field. I don't know. And again, I don't think that this Commanders offense is really that great. Terry McLaurin is absolutely awesome. He's on that Mike Evans trajectory right now where basically every single season he has had a 1,000-yard season. And I think he's had 5 different starting quarterbacks throwing to him. I think that sounds right, but yeah, Terry McLaurin is great, but outside of that, there are a lot of question marks outside of Jaden and Terry. Brian Robinson is fine, but he's not really a great starting running back. Austin Eckler is Austin Eckler, whatever. Zach Ertz is old, and then they got Daimi Brown and Olamide Zaccheaus, who are just guys, really. So it's the fact that there is a chance for this offense to improve quite a bit with some key additions maybe this offseason that they'll do is scary. But right now, they get the Eagles next week. That should be a fun game anyways. But, yeah, shout out to Dan Quinn, who, again, didn't like the hire when it happened, but he's now won a playoff game for this team. So that is great. And another hire that I absolutely didn't like is Cliff Kingsbury. And I was fully on board, especially post-Halloween, of being okay, this is the Cliff Kingsbury dip. This is where in Arizona, every single year, the back half of the year, his offenses would get figured out and fall apart, and made me eat my own words. That offense looked better, if not just the same, it has throughout the whole year, and now he's won a playoff game. And now you can look back on those years with Arizona, and you can kind of just point the blame at Kyler Murray, because that has been consistent every year in Murray's career, including this one, where, okay, I thought that Kyler was, again, he started off really good, and then that second half of the year, he flamed out, where now you can see who's more to blame. Was it Cliff Kingsbury? Was it Kyler? It looks like Kyler's the one who's at fault. Yeah, Cliff, I don't think he'll get a head coaching job this cycle, but someone next year might give him another opportunity. So I don't know. Just shout out to the Commanders. They played really well. Bucs on the other side. Again, it was those 2 mistakes late in the game that ended up costing them. They played a really good game, but 2 key mistakes is the difference. That 1 turnover is the big difference in this game. Mike Evans did his Mike Evans thing, 7 catches, 92 yards, and a TD. Absolutely took advantage of Marshawn Lattimore. Marshawn Lattimore, I don't think he's the same corner. He came back from injury too, so maybe he's still battling that a little bit, but Mike Evans got the better of him. Bucky Irving, 17 carries, 77 yards. Also added a receiving touchdown too. I'm trying to remember. I think that the Buccaneers won. Yeah, the Buccaneers had won the time of possession battle by over 10 minutes too, which was a big difference too. But I don't know. Just another game of questionable decisions by Todd Bowles, the head coach for this team, where the Bucs are in a weird spot because obviously it's hard to fire Todd Bowles. He's made playoffs back-to-back years, but they got an offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen, who is getting some serious looks at head coach, where I don't think that he's going to be one of these people getting a head coaching jobs, but you never know. I think it would be probably a year too early for him, but what does a year really mean in the grand scheme of things? But my main point is just I don't think that the Bucs can let him out the door, where I think Todd Bowles his job is safe, he won't get fired, but Next year, if Liam Coleman is getting serious looks and Todd Bowles just had another okay Todd Bowles year, I would look to fire him and then hire Liam Cohen to be that their new head coach. But I don't really know where to go for the Bucks. Again, had a very good draft class. It seems like a lot of people had a lot of good draft classes. I think this was just a very good draft class in general. But they get Graham Barden. They drafted Bucky Irving, Jalen McMillan. Like, they had guys who were Tyke Smith. Zy McCollum got drafted. Never mind. Either way, like, they had guys who were contributors for them all year as rookies, which is very, very nice to see. Baker had an incredible year. He was good in this one too. 15 of 18, 485 yards and 2 TDs. But that's another thing. Like, Baker Mayfield only attempted to pass the ball 18 times. And mainly that's just kind of time of possession, clock issue, like whatever. But the fact that Baker only threw the ball 18 times in a game where they also didn't even run that much either, it was truly like the team to make the first mistake was the one that lost this game, and that's exactly what happened. So, yeah. Shout out to Baker Mayfield. He played well, I think Levante David got hurt late too, which you never like to hear that. But that is the wild card recap here. I went decently long. We're at 50-ish minutes right now, but I guess let's talk about this 2025 NFL draft class. And I'm going to go position by position, talking about kind of the main guys of each group. I think I did this last year too. I think I'm doing it a little bit earlier this year, but this won't be, again, right now in my recording time, I am at 51 minutes and 30 seconds. So I'm going to keep this close to the hour mark, try not to go long. And we'll start off with a group, start off the quarterbacks. I have made it myself very clear about this quarterback class. It is not good. Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, they're both very okay. Cam Ward, I guess he has a high ceiling, but his floor is almost non-existent, where Shedeur has a higher floor, but his ceiling is also just non-existent. And those are the best two QBs in this class. The third best, maybe Jalen Milroe, who, I don't know, I think he'd be better in a Taysom Hill role than he would be as an actual quarterback. Then we have Quinn Ewers, who was supposed to be this great college QB, one of the best 5-star prospects coming out of high school, and he's done absolutely, again, he had a good college career, but he's great, but he's a project. And guys like Jackson Dart, also a project. It's not good. This is not a year to need a quarterback. It is very, very thin. Shout out to Indiana quarterback, though, Curtis Rourke, Canadian, played on a torn ACL this year. He's the only guy who I like, and it's just because he's Canadian. We can go to the running backs now, where obviously the stud of the running back position this year is Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State, and we all know how good Ashton Jeanty is. Will be a first-round pick, but there's some other guys too. We got Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina, where it seems like he seems to be consensus number 2 right now. He has some really fun highlights. We have the 2 guys from Ohio State, Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. They both look good. Again, when you split a backfield, it's hard to really get a gauge. Travion Henderson's been there forever, just really consistent. A guy like Cam Skattebo, who literally does it all for Arizona State, runs, catches, throws, a true do-it-all back. A guy like Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, but again, Ollie Gordon out of Oklahoma State, Devin Neal out of Kansas. But like every other year for running back, there is a million dudes. It just is what it is. This is what the running back position is. Is this a better running back class than years past? Yes. But like every running back class, it kind of goes 10 guys deep, and usually 5 of those guys end up being starting running backs at some point during their NFL careers. So running back class, another good one, but it usually is pretty good. Wide receivers here. So Tet McMillan, the number 1 receiver, debatable because Travis Hunter exists, but I don't think Travis Hunter will be a wide receiver. Either way, Tet McMillan, really good. Then we got guys like Luther Burden out of Missouri, Emeka Ibuka out of Ohio State, who is just, if you want a guy who is just a surefire number 2 guy, very good route runner, you know exactly what you're getting, that is Emeka Ibuka. It seems like every year when he's talked about, oh, he could be the number 1 wide receiver in this class, he just gets further and further and further down the list. And luckily for himself, he found a good draft class to go into, because it's not a great wide receiver class. Because after those 3 and technically 4 with Hunter, it gets a little iffy. We have guys like Isaiah Bond out of Texas, who looks good. The traits look good. The production wasn't there, but again, Quinn Ewers wasn't that great anyways. We have Xavier Restrepo out of Miami, who will be the do-it-all, shifty, sneaky athletic, that type of white receiver that we seemingly get every year. That's him. A guy like Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, Alec Ayomanor, I probably said that completely wrong, but not a strong wide receiver class, especially when you want to compare it to last year's, but we got some decent top-end guys anyways. I think it's like Tet McMillan, then there's another teardrop, and that's when you get Luther Burden and like Emeka Ibuka, and then there's another teardrop after that. At tight end, decently strong tight end class. We got Tyler Warren, who I absolutely love, the 6'6", 260. Again, do-it-all tight end. He can throw, he can run it, he can pass it. Again, you want a Taysom Hill type guy? Tyler Warren's your guy. Will he just mainly be a tight end? He's also a good blocker. Tyler Warren's awesome. Then we have Colston Loveland out of Michigan. Didn't have a super productive year this year, but that's because the Michigan quarterbacks just were not good whatsoever. But Loveland, I think, went into the year as like the consensus number 1 tight end, and now, again, he'll still probably be a first-round pick, but another name to look out there too. And then the other name here is Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green. Broke a ton of NCAA tight end records this year. Again, playing in the MAC conference, a little easier to do, but Fannin is a pure receiving threat tight end. We'll have to probably throw in a little strength to maybe throw blocking a little bit into the game, but Fannin might be the best receiver out of this group, but has a lot of other things to work out. Also a smaller schooled guy. And then we talk offensive line here, and we'll start off with offensive tackles, where doesn't look great, but I think I said it last week, where the offensive tackle class is getting better the more we learn about this group. So I've talked about the 2 guys at the top here, Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks, who might be both best suited on the interior. So we'll see with them, but those are the 2 guys that everyone knows. Then there's Josh Simmons out of Ohio State, who played a great 6 games, then he got hurt, and unfortunately for him, those 6 games, he didn't really face great competition, but the tape is great. He looks awesome. Cam Williams, the other tackle out of Texas, he's 6'8". He is huge. He's not the greatest mover, but someone that's around. And then we'll talk about 2 guys here. Josh Connerly Jr. out of Oregon, who is quickly rising up the mock drafts and draft board ranks. Very athletic tackle out of Oregon. And I think I'm going to talk about him more when it's like, oh, the combine guys to watch. Connerly will be one of them. And then the other guy here is Armin Membu out of Missouri, another guy who is just quickly rising up the ranks. I was listening to Connor Rogers and Trevor Sikkema's podcast, the NFL Draft Exchange, and they were just kind of talking about the tackle class, and Patrick Membu was in both of their top 5s. I think Connor Rogers had him as his number 2 tackle. So, it's a little stronger. And then we have guys like Ariante Ursere out of Minnesota. Again, not as deep as last year, where, again, I think when I clipped out whatever, I had like 10 guys who I listed who should be day 1, day 2 guys. And now it's like, right now I think I'm at like 7 guys. So, still pretty decent, not the greatest. On the interior, though, It's always a little bit weaker trying to find these guys, but Tyler Booker out of Alabama seems to be like he is the number one interior guy, not including Will Campbell or Kelvin Banks, who might get moved into the interior either way. The two Georgia guards are also moving up the ranks, Tate Ratledge and Dylan Fairchild. Interior offensive line's fine. We don't have to spend a ton of time on that. We'll talk about defensive linemen here. Not super strong. Mason Graham, one of the best players in this class. He is, again, far and away the best defensive tackle in this class. And then, again, we have that teardrop just a little bit. His teammate, Kenneth Grant, another kind of freak athlete guy who, again, is he Mason Graham? No. Is he a really good player? Yes. Derek Harmon out of Oregon, who I've talked about. Then we get Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss, Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. Those are kind of the top-end guys. It's pretty good. I think it's stronger on day 2, but Mason Graham is the real stud of that group. Edge is one of the deeper position groups of this draft. Abdul Carter, who I think is most people's number one edge in the class right now. Absolute stud. But then I think there could be five edge players taken in the first round. So Abdul Carter will be one of them. Michael Williams out of Georgia. He has the traits, he has the frame, just the production really hasn't been there for them, but he will still be picked highly. James Pierce Jr. has just been consistent his entire career. He does remind me of Jared Verse in just in terms of, again, consistency. Nick Scorden out of Texas A&M. Mike Green out of Marshall. I think he led the NCAA in sacks this year. The Senior Bowl will really be a big proving ground for a lot of these people too. And then we have day 2 guys, like I'm not even going to attempt this guy's last name, but actually, well, I'm going to here, but Princely Uamana-Malin out of Ole Miss. I, again, completely butchered that. But him, Landon Jackson out of Arkansas, Jack Sawyer and JT Tuamalu out of Ohio State, Kyle Kennard out of South Carolina. Those are like the next group of guys. It's a deep edge class. If you need edge rushers, this is the year to go up and grab one. Linebacker, really not a lot to talk about here. Jalen Walker out of Georgia is probably going to be the only first-round linebacker taken. And then after that, Jahad Campbell out of Bama. That's basically it. Walker is the only first-round linebacker. Again, I feel like linebacker's been relatively weak over these last few years. We'll move on to corners, where corner is a fairly strong group as well. They got two of the top 5 players in this class for me anyways. Travis Hunter, Will Johnson, both true number 1 corners. You need a shutdown guy, it will be one of them. And then you have 2 guys who dealt with injuries this year. You have Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame, and you have Siobhan Revell Jr. out of East Carolina. Both guys, again, the tape wasn't much of it. You can go back to 2023's tape too, but both guys who should still be first-round picks despite the injuries. Again, that's just how good the tape was. Then you have Jahdae Barron out of Texas, who ended up winning the Best Defensive Back Award in college over Travis Hunter, which, weird because Hunter won the Heisman and he played defense, but beside the point. Jahdae Barron is really good. He is Brian Branch-esque, where you can just kind of move him all over the field, and he will do a good job. He did his best job, and actually he did do a really good, but they were double covering Jeremiah Smith the entire game in that semifinal game of Ohio State versus Texas. But Jahdae Barron, another good player, again, Brian Branch-esque, at least in what his role could be. And finally, we'll end with safeties, where it's Malachi Starks. Malachi Starks is the best safety in the draft. He is awesome. Very, very, very good player. Do-it-all safety. And then you have some other guys like Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State, Nick Amanawari out of South Carolina, and then Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame. Not super, super strong. Again, as I learn in a couple of these day 2 guys, I'll probably start to like a little bit more, but it is Malachi Starks. That is it. I'm close to the hour mark. Maybe went a little long with this, but yeah, that's the episode. Friday's episode will be previewing all of these divisional matchups. I got to figure out something else to talk about too, because just talking about the divisional matchups, not that much to talk about. So I'll try to figure out what I'm actually going to do. It might be a mock draft. Maybe. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But as always, if you've liked this, please like, share, retweet, subscribe, tell your friends, and until next time, peace.